Coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers report, some injury updates on Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams, and I'm going to explain why specifically I'm concerned about McCaffrey as well as Deebo, with San Francisco set to take on the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. This is the 49ers report. I'm Chase Senior coming at you from home because whenever there's big news that revolves around the Niners, we bring it to you right here on the channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Programming reminder, going to be live for our Niners-Vikings watch party on Monday Night Football. We'll be giving away a signed Frank Gore jersey, raffling off a Niners hat. We're currently sitting at 96,343 subscribers. Once we get to 100K, YouTube is sending us a plaque, and we'll be partying here on the 49ers Report, so make sure you hit that sub button for daily shows on the Niners. Let's begin with the latest injury news on Christian McCaffrey. According to Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, McCaffrey is dealing with a slight little tear in his oblique, but he's still expected to play on Monday night against Minnesota. Now, you look at the Christian McCaffrey injury timeline here. Hurt last week in the Niners' first loss against the Cleveland Browns, left the game in the second half, tried to come back, ran the football once, medium game, and then he had to exit the game once again, and then we saw him on the broadcast running into the locker room, and he tried to stretch it out. According to doctors who I talked to, when they saw him try to stretch it out, he came in, then ran off under his own power. They kind of gave me the indication that this wasn't going to be a severe injury, and it's still not a severe injury, but this is somewhat concerning just because what if a small tear turns into a major tear? Going back to the timeline, he got the x-rays on Sunday. They were negative. The MRI was negative. Kyle Shanahan relayed that news to us this week, and it's interesting with the Niners injury updates on McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams because everything that we heard from earlier in the week has now changed as we sit here on this Sunday on the eve of the Niners Week 7 matchup against Minnesota. I totally understand that the human body is complex, anatomy is wild, right? And things do change as far as injuries go, but things seemed a little bit more positive earlier in the week than they were this week, and we know about the injury problems under Shanahan since he took over as head coach in 2017. Niners have been a top 10 most injured team every single year. So McCaffrey told Kyle Shanahan this week to include him in the game plan, treat him as if he was 100%, he was a full go. He was seen on the practice field this week, and he even said to the media, "I'm good, I feel great." But this injury development is somewhat new, and I think that San Francisco, as well as Christian McCaffrey, they're playing with a little bit of fire here. Slight little tear. What if that leads to a larger tear? I just don't really see why it would be intelligent to risk further injury if he does play against Minnesota, especially considering that he's a player that's so important and so critical to the Niners' success. I appreciate and I admire McCaffrey's toughness here. He has this dedication to the game that I think is special, and that's what the greats have. His teammates rave about him. They always say that even though he's been a two-time All-Pro and he's accomplished so much in his NFL career, and since getting traded to the Niners, he's been one of the best overall offensive players in the game. He works on his footwork. He works on his body, always looking to improve upon some of his weaknesses, and he likes to be coached hard, right? All that stuff is great, but you have to have a little bit of the long play here if you're the Niners. The Minnesota Vikings are not a good football team. San Francisco is competing for a Super Bowl, and even though Trent Williams is doubtful, more on him in a moment, and Deebo Samuel's not going to play, more on him in just a bit as well, you should still be able to beat the Minnesota Vikings without those two players, as well as Christian McCaffrey. With the talent that you still have, the scheme that you have, the coaching that you have on that sideline, and the fact that you're coming off a loss against the Cleveland Browns, and you have that extra day of rest going into Monday night here. So the toughness and him wanting to play, gut it out, that's awesome. This is football, and you want players to be gritty. But should the Niners save him from himself and keep him out of the lineup, I think it might be wise to do that because you think slight muscle tear, right? A small tear in your muscle. think about it. If you have a slight tear in your pants, you're getting ready for work, right? And you see that slight tear in your pants, and you're like, all right, I can get by, and that tear isn't going to turn into a large tear if I wear those pants right now. But then you wear those pants throughout the workday, or you're going out with some homies, and you're hitting a couple of bars, and then you come home later that night, and you look at that tear in your jeans, and it goes from here to a little bit larger, and then you keep wearing those pants, and then that tear gets even bigger. Like, that's kind of what I think about when I'm thinking about this muscle tear for Christian McCaffrey. Starts as a small tear, but what if he gets hit? What if he gets turned over a little bit, his body stretches in the wrong direction, and he re-aggravates that injury, and then it goes from him maybe sitting this week out of precaution, sitting next week against the Bengals to be safe and err on the side of caution, and then you have that bye week after that. So if you sit him now, he has nearly a full month to get right and healthy for the stretch run for San Francisco with half the season left. And oh yeah, this Niners schedule going to get really tough on the back end, playing some really formidable opponents. So I'm concerned about this injury. I don't think that McCaffrey should play on Monday night. You should still be able to beat Minnesota. And if we're looking at this injury down the road as something that becomes a little bit more serious when it could have been avoided with rest, where you have ample time to do that against teams that you should beat in Minnesota, Cincinnati, and more rest because of the bye week, let's remember that later on in the year when we think back to the Niners going into Week 7 against Minnesota. Now, should McCaffrey play? That is our poll question for today, and I want to hear from you down in the comment section here. Just type P for play or R for rest. Like I said, Niners should beat Minnesota. I think they're going to beat the Vikings either way, even though it's on the road. They'll already be without Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. We'll see what happens with Christian McCaffrey, but because Deebo is out, I love Brandon Ayuk this week. More than 69.5 receiving yards on Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports app in North America, and we can get you up to a $100 deposit bonus if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and enter the promo code CLNS. It is daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 to 3 players, and you choose more or less on their projected stat lines. Because Deebo's out, Ayuk's going to get targeted a lot. That's why I like more than 69.5 receiving yards for Ayuk as one of my few picks this week. Get your picks in. And I know that we don't have our fancy graphics right now because I'm grinding from the crib, but we'll put that link to download the app for free down in the comment section and in the description of this video. prizepicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS for up to a $100 deposit bonus. Deebo Samuel here. Some concerns on this front as well, considering his playing style, considering the injury. So Deebo has a hairline fracture in his shoulder. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, wait, what? That's a change from earlier in the week where there was optimism. We talked about his appearance on the Kay Adams show where he said, you know, Juan Thornhill kind of hit me in my bicep. It was a little bit of a stinger. I've been dealing with a lot of pain, and it was great pain at first, and then it started to get a little bit better. But Deebo Samuel continued to suffer from pain all throughout this week. So even though he got an MRI and an X-ray earlier this week, and both came back negative, because he was still feeling some of that pain, an X-ray is like 2D, as I've been explained by doctors. A CT scan is like a 3D image, so it's more in-depth, and it can reveal more as far as the injury goes. And a lot of you have heard of a CT scan before, right? So the CT scan that Deebo got recently, at the end of this week, showed a hairline fracture. What is a hairline fracture? Some people think that a break in the bone is different from a hairline fracture. That's not the case. With a hairline fracture, again, as doctors explain it to me, it is a slight and very minimal break in the shoulder, right? Or on any bone, if we're talking about just an overall hairline fracture. We also hear about these a lot. So with Deebo, there is a slight break in his shoulder, and it's a minimal injury right now and a minimal break, right? But anytime you're dealing with a bone that has a little bit of a crack in it, and that's pretty much what it's explained to me as with this hairline fracture. I think that that's a little bit of an issue as well. The Niners right now are saying he's going to miss at least the next 2 games. So where we kind of think about McCaffrey maybe sitting out the next 3, including the bye week, Deebo is going to do that. He's going to miss the Vikings game. He's going to miss the Bengals game. Then the Niners go into the bye week, week 9. Everything that I've kind of gathered on this, even though the Niners are throwing out a 2-game timeline, this could be like a month to 6-week injury. So a 4 to 6 week injury. And that's why that's a little bit of an issue here. And we're going to continue to monitor this storyline too, especially how things change from earlier in the week with all these injuries up until now. So Deebo's going to miss at least the next 2 games. I would not be surprised, from everything that I've kind of gathered, if Deebo is out a little bit longer than that. And if he's out now for a month to 6 weeks, the Niners' schedule gets tough. That includes Seahawks game. That includes potentially Philadelphia Eagles game going into December if this thing does linger a little bit. Now, if he's back after the bye week, all is good, and that's great. But when you think about the playing style of Deebo, he's a wide receiver who, when he catches the football, he turns into a running back. Deebo Samuel is a damn dog. He can play on my football team any day of the week. The way that he carries himself, the way that he plays, the toughness that he exudes, the physicality that he brings to the football field is extremely unique at that wide receiver spot. His ability to lower his shoulder, injured shoulder, barrel through tacklers, and pick up yards after the catch is a big reason why, since he came into the NFL, drafted out of South Carolina in the 2nd round in 2019, pretty good haul in the draft that year for the Niners. Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, he leads the NFL in yak. But how long is his body going to be able to hold up if he plays with this style and the injuries continue to rack up? That's my issue here with Deebo. Special player, injured a lot, and now since signing that contract extension, last year missed some time. This year, missing some more time. In 2021, when he was an All-Pro, played 16 games, 1,405 receiving yards, nearly 1,800 total yards, 14 total touchdowns. In 2019-2020, and in 2022-2023 combined, he's only played in 41 games. He's accumulated 2,100 receiving yards, 2,600 plus total yards, and 14 touchdowns. So in those 41 games, compared to the 16 that he played in 2021, he's been injured a lot. Missed a lot of time in 2020, missed a couple of games last year, and now set to miss at least 2 more games. Here, you're paying a lot of money, top 10 receiver money, for a player who's missing a lot of time, whose playing style relies and depends on him bringing that brute force to the football field. And if he continues to get these nicks and bruises and the injuries continue to happen here, does the contract extension become a little bit of a problem? We're also going to continue to talk about this conversation because it's one that we have been talking about, and we were literally talking about this before Deebo signed that deal. He earned the bag with how he played in 2021. All-Pro, in the MVP conversation, with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback. Anytime the Niners needed a big play, they turned to Deebo, 1-9, and he made plays happen. Explosive as a running back, gadget guy, and as a wide receiver. Hopefully, the injuries can be avoided here, and the shoulder injury doesn't become that much larger, because when he's on the field, he's an absolute game changer. As for Trent Williams, with that ankle injury that he suffered last week against Cleveland, doubtful against Minnesota. Kyle Shanahan saying, I have confidence in Jalen Moore to step in at left tackle. It's good for the coach to say that. I don't have a lot of confidence in Jalen Moore because his play has not exuded confidence from everything that we've watched. And you go back and watch the film, he's not great at left tackle, and that is Brock Purdy's blind side, and it's on a Niners offensive line that has struggled on the right side with Spencer Burford, Colton McKivitz. Now on that left side, does it get a little bit leaky against a player like Danielle Hunter, who going into this week led the NFL in sacks. So if Trent Williams can't go, that impacts the run game, it impacts the pass game, and it impacts the entire offense for the Niners. So the injury report here for San Francisco, doubtful Trent Williams with that ankle, questionable. Christian McCaffrey, oblique. Dre Greenlaw, hamstring, but he was practicing. Out. Deebo Samuel. So wanted to pass along that Niners injury news here on this Sunday. Hope you're all either watching football today or you're having a good time. Maybe some of you are like getting some errands done, chores done around the house, mowing the lawn while watching and listening to the show. We appreciate that if that's the case. Back tomorrow, more content coming your way, and of course our watch party against Minnesota.